You are now tuned in to Queen Tone, a podcast where all women, especially Black women, are invited to share their thoughts, opinions, and experiences with the world without being asked to check their tone. This is a safe space to tune in to hear two millennial women's take on social, political, comedic, and straight up what the fuck topics every other week, where we bring it to you straight, no chaser. Because let's be real, it's usually never actually the tone that's too loud, but rather the truth. I'm Dana, a Detroit player paid for being a nerd with my tech savviness and product mindset, but known for my love of 90s R&B, comedic wit, and very on-brand Capricorn lifestyle.
And I'm Nita, paid for being a bad bitch and improving people's lives, but also known for my ability to speak truth to power and dance to the beat of my own drum. Real Aquarius shit. And this is Queen Tone. Queen Tone.
Queen Tone. Another
Back
week.
for another week in this bitch.
Another show. How's it going?
I'm still alive.
Have you I don't want to spoil it for our listeners. Have you watched yesterday's episode of Mayor of Easttown?
Girl, it was so good.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to talk about it after the show. I watched it today too. If y'all don't watch it,
2 episodes left.
Yeah, if y'all don't watch it, it's on HBO, Mayor of Easttown, whatever. On HBO with what's her name from Titanic? Kate Winslet. Yeah.
You know, there's only a few white women that I truly fuck with.
Yeah.
And Kate Winslet is one of them.
She's one of them.
She's a great actress. She really is. And that Phyllis,
she's playing that wall.
Accent,
yeah. Middle of nowhere. It's drama. Small town drama. It's messy.
Last night's episode was so
shocking.
Good. Yes.
I had to rewind. Yeah. I had to rewind on that. But yeah, it's a good show.
Yes. It was good. What else is going on this week?
The premiere of Girls Run the World. Black Girls Run the World.
Run the World.
Run the World. Yeah.
I liked it. Did you watch it?
I liked it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. A Black show that I can support without having to hate watch it.
Unlike a Black lady sketch. I watched
At some point, I feel like I'm gonna get a cease and desist letter in my email because I keep talking shit about motherfucking a Black lady sketch show. But Run the World was actually very entertaining.
Good. It's a 30-minute comedy.
I'm kind of mad that it was so short, but I was like, you know what, this is enough. Like it was good enough.
Yeah, I like it. And I feel like it's not going to be like the typical 4 girlfriends in the city. At least their setup is a little bit different because one is married. I feel like she's getting a divorce. They kind of hinted at it in the preview.
Wait, none of them are married. What are you talking about?
Brisha Webb is married. The girl who was dancing
in the show?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember them being there. I remember one of them being engaged.
There's one that's engaged, one that is single who just started the job, another one who was living in with her professor. Boyfriend who got the daughter.
Oh, and the other one is married.
And the other one is married.
That completely.
Yeah. It was like one comment, and then they were like, "Oh, we always talk about you something." But in the preview, it talked about like her dealing with her rocky marriage.
Oh,
unless I'm completely making it up, which I don't think.
No, you're probably right. But I completely missed. But it was a cute show. I will continue to watch it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it, but it was cute enough for me to come back for episode 2.
It got some eye candy in it. Being Mary Jane's ex-boyfriend. I don't know his name in real life.
Oh yeah, that's where I knew him from. I was like, he looks so familiar.
Yeah, he always played like a nice ain't shit nigga. So I just am anticipating him being on bullshit, but he cute though. So
they showed a lot of her butt and his butt.
They showed dick. The last 30 seconds.
They did. I was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Like
but
balls and penis everywhere.
It was there. Yeah. I was surprised.
It's on Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Stars. So, they can do whatever they want on cable.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they do that in Power too?
I don't feel like they showed dick. They really was showing dick. Like you could have took an exam.
Yeah.
And traced
and named all the parts. Yeah.
Testicles.
Yeah. It was a diet. It was a fun diet.
There's a bit there.
Yeah.
I love how they brought up Soulja Boy. I thought that was very interesting.
Mr. Tello, See, I actually laughed out loud at moments in the show.
Yeah, me too.
With Black Lady sketch show, it's like Inception laughing. Yeah. Like inside my mind, I'm like, huh.
Yeah, it's like, You know how people be having the memes where it's like laughing my AO, and it's just like you sitting there at your screen.
Yeah. Like,
like fundamentally, you know, it's supposed to be funny, but it's not.
Yeah, but you know, I still watch every episode. What else?
Ariana Grande got married, and I just want to say that she has.
Is this breaking news?
Yes, this just came out today for the small amount of time I was on Twitter today because work was a shit show. She got married in some secret ceremony, which is like good for her, great. Dalton but if you look at the pictures, I'm just gonna say she has a type, and it's very interesting. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
All shade. And the
wait, is
that cute either?
Big Sean is not in her type though.
Yeah, I would say Big Sean is like an outlier, but everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it there. Y'all Google for yourself. Yeah. But happy for her, you know what I'm saying? Thank you, next. I guess there's no more next.
That's right. Just thank you. Encore. What else happened? I locked my hair on Friday.
Oh yes. Yeah. How was that experience? Tell the listeners.
It was cool. I'm in my awkward phase right now where and like I was watching
every hairstyle has an awkward phase.
Yeah, I was watching like a million different YouTube videos of like when I decided to get it locked and like how I would do it versus sister lock versus comb coil versus you can start with 2-strand twist. And it's all the talk of like embracing that awkward phase where right now they're laid, but like when they start kind of going which way or when you need to retwist because it don't look neat, but it's not time for it to be a retwist and you just kind of like got to find the right hat or updo or whatever. So I'm like, hey,
time is going to fly by. I think they look cute from what I can see on the camera because clearly I have not seen them in person.
Yeah.
But we in a panorama, I mean, at least
if anything,
we're in a panorama. Everybody else might not think, my job might not think that we in a panorama, but you know, we still in a panorama. So you good, you in the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I'm excited. And because my hair is longer, so I didn't have to do like a big chop to cut out perm. And because my hair was locking by its damn self, like I have like is there a 5C hairstyle type? It's probably not, but if it was, I would have.
You got a really tight curl.
Yeah. So it shouldn't take as long to lock. At least I'm hoping, but I'm excited because I don't have to do anything else in my hair. My mom is like, ship me all your hair products now because I didn't convince my mom to go natural. So I'll have to deal with all this, you know, hair products. And once I teach myself how to retwist it, then I won't
take lots of pictures because you're gonna like a year from now, you're gonna want to look back and be like, oh, you know, like see the growth. I see people do that all the time. I have my friend Yolanda, who I talked about last week, who's a photographer, I think she recently made a post that says she had her lock anniversary. Her locks are beautiful. Like when I think about somebody's locks, like, and they're like maybe, I don't want to say the wrong year, but I feel like it was like 2 to 3 years maybe or something like that. But anyway, her locks are beautiful. It's just like, you'll look back and be like, oh, I can't believe you know,
I noted my date. Yeah, some people count theirs. I have 70. Because I didn't want them to be too big. My hair is still thick. Right now it doesn't look like it just because of how she pulled it to like curl it, but it'll be thick. So I'm excited.
I'm excited for your lock journey.
Thanks.
Let's talk about the bullshit that happened this week. I feel like queen shit and tone check is gonna be the same shit.
Double whammy, twofer.
Double whammy. So Dana and I started to talk about this before we started recording, but I'm like, no, let's save it for the show. So how many of y'all listen to the Joe Budden podcast? Raise your hands. Thank you. All right.
Nina's hand is raised. My hand is raised. I'm surprised Nina's is raised.
Well, actually, I stopped listening to them about almost a year ago, maybe like a few months to a year, like 6 months to a year ago. I actually stopped watching. I forget what, because they were always on the teeter. I mean, they were always problematic. Let's start there. So there's nothing about what me and Dana are saying is that we condone or co-sign anything that has ever been said on the Joe Budden podcast, because it's a problematic podcast. I think I found it entertaining enough to listen to because I'm like, what these niggas got to say about this topic type of thing. Like, what is the average person, you know what I'm saying? The average person out there think about this topic. And I know it's going to be different than what I think about the topic most times.
Yeah.
So I will listen to the podcast, but I forget what happened. Oh, I think it was around the time that Tahiri, so maybe it wasn't a year. Well, I had been off and on, but I think Tahiri had said some accusation about Joe. I mean, she had already said stuff about Joe, but I think recently she came out and said he hit me, he did this, he did that, and I did not like
Love and
his
Hip Hop?
response. Yeah, they were both on Love and Hip Hop together.
I only know pieces of. I know he was on there. I listened to the podcast just to get their take on when hip hop albums came out and to like listen to shit.
They were really known for like their musical like reviews and sharing new music, which I really enjoyed. But I had been listening to the podcast since it was We'll Name This Podcast Later.
Oh.
Which was for people who know, that was like the early iteration. They had this girl, it was Rory, Joe, and Melissa, I forget. They fired Melissa about like maybe, I don't even know, 30 episodes in or some short number. She wasn't there for a long time, but they fired her. I mean, well, Joe fired her. And then they brought Maul in. Yeah, they had rotated a few female hosts and then ultimately ended up bringing Maul in. And they have been rocking. They had like 300 something episodes, but this week it was noted that they have disbanded the podcast. And it's very, very messy. There's so many elements to the story, but the crux of the story is that Joe Budden would not show the accounting behind the show, like how much Rory and Maul were getting paid. They were percentage partners, but Joe is being kind of shady about like how much they were making.
Go on salary, not answering any questions. Sounding, I might add, like a complete hypocrite, because multiple times on that show, he was an advocate for having ownership and knowing your shit. And like, even when comments of, you know how Diddy don't ever pay any, or Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever, don't ever pay nobody, like always having comments on other artists about that. So for him to then act brand new when his people are like, yo, I just want to see, like, I just want to see it, because they're percentage. So they need to know out of what percentage am I getting, versus I think too, because even in their like response to everything that happened, they noted that they're not salary, so they don't work for him.
Right, because they're percentage partners. Even if it's I get 1% of the profit. I'm not your like that's how business is. When you own a business, that's how it works. Like some people get 50%, some people get 30%, some people get 20%. Like, but you're all owners, or like you may not own the same amount of equity, but you all have equity in the brands, right?
Right.
And I think for Joe to what really irritated me was that, I mean, outside of Joe kind of being like a hypocrite, he was really talking on Rory and Maul crazy. Yeah. Like stuff that you would never say to, like, that's the thing with doing business with your friends. It's always going to get emotional. It's all, you know, we all know this stuff and you kind of have to tread lightly. But the way he was talking about Rory and Maul and then firing Rory kind of mid podcast or not on air because it's not live, but I just found that to be like so trash.
Wow.
So trash.
Yeah. So, like, to your point, I always kind of knew like Joe Budden wasn't a shit, but I feel like then, even with all of like his, didn't he beat one of his?
There's so many allegations. Yeah, he forced not an abortion, but a miscarriage because he sat on. I forget what is her name. I forget. She's like a well-known. No, it wasn't Sin. It was another woman who he had been in a relationship with. I forget her name. Sorry about that. But yeah, I forget her name. But she had accused him of forcing a miscarriage because they were fighting and he sat on her stomach. And then Tahiri had said that he's beat me, he's punched me, he's done this. So there was all sorts of things, problematicness in Joe's past that people look past because, I mean, he's a black man. And if you abuse black or Latinx women, nobody cares, right? Yeah. So he's gotten away with a lot. But what I love, which is how we're getting into queen shit. So Joe Budden has his Joe Budden Podcast Network. One of the shows on that network is called The Thing Is, and it's hosted by Bridget Kelly, this girl named Mandy, and DJ Olivia Pope. And today, I preface this, I never really listened to The Thing Is podcast, but I've listened to episodes. Like I watched it on YouTube because it's on the same YouTube channel.
When they have guests on, you know, I watch it.
It's an all-female podcast, so I would listen to it, washing, you know, cleaning up the house and stuff. And then all of a sudden, you know, I wasn't watching every single episode, but all of a sudden, Olivia Dope wasn't there anymore. So I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, you know, she just left and they didn't really mention why she left. And I didn't care. Like, I was a casual listener, so I didn't care enough to figure it out. But today it comes out that Joe Budden sexually harassed her on air and on camera during an episode of their podcast, which led her to quit. She had receipts, she had timestamps, she had all her ducks in a row. And I'm really proud of her. She seemed very, like, if you watch the video, she seemed very nervous and, like, you know, kind of shaking, like, you know, like she wasn't sure if she wanted to share her story. But you know, kudos to her, because, you know, like I said, there's been lots of accusations about Joe Budden, but I think this, like, her coming out and saying Joe is a problematic leader. This is what happened to me. This is on camera. And it sucks that it has to be on camera. It sucks that it has to be on audio for anybody to believe you. But I'm glad that she was able to speak her truth.
Yeah. Because she wasn't the I'm glad that it'll get traction, because, you know, are you familiar with Scotty Beam personality? So she mentioned it on State of the Culture podcast or show that Joe had, that she left because I think she said something like she wasn't happy, but it was clear of, like, harassment, the way that he talked to women, the way that he treated women, everything was
very disrespectful.
And it's interesting. Probably my soundbite of, like, the tone check aspect of this, because I was even talking to my brother about it, of how baffled I was of, like, the Rory and Mal thing is what niggas are, like, dropping Joe Budden off of, not the assault for women. And I'm like, that's just
right. It's very, that's why I say, when it comes to Black and brown women, nobody gives a fuck.
It's not surprising, but it's like, wow, men are like, I've been listening to him since Pump It Up came out, and this is the shot that broke the camel's back, not him.
But there's also tons of comments, because I was, like, perusing the comments in his YouTube video, and you know, people defending him and saying, but, you know, whatever.
Not my big bro.
The world is gonna right. So cheers to the women who are now taking Joe Budden down. And, you know, I think we were talking about this. I don't think we were talking about it on air. We might have been on the phone. But the reckoning that the film industry has had, the music industry has not yet had. Yeah. And I just know it's way worse. Yeah. I just have a gut feeling. You hear,
we didn't talk about did we talk about Versus with Escape and SWE? But now Nelly is in the loop with T.I. and Tiny's little
I don't
family affair.
Recorded since Mother's Day. But no, I did not hear that Nelly had gotten tied up in that.
Yeah, he was like forcing. They were at a party. This is all gossip, allegedly. But allegedly.
Don't sue us.
And a woman was forced to have sex with Nelly, like at whatever function that T.I. and Tiny were with.
No, that don't sit right on my soul. No.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, that's at the same thing of with T.I. and Tiny, and why people are like, you're watching Versus with an alleged sex offender on stage.
And I really enjoyed that Versus.
I know, like that's
the music. That's my. You talk about auntie era, like that is literally it for me.
Yeah.
And when Coco sang one of the verses from, was it Understanding?
Coco didn't do Understanding. That's SWV.
Well, no, it's not her song, but they let her sing one of the verses.
Oh, did they? Oh,
yeah. I really enjoyed that crossover. Like, yeah, they handed her the mic for a second and she sang like the pre-chorus or something. I was like, I live.
So I found out after the fact too, that the reason Coco, because at first people were like, oh, why she seem like she got an attitude or she a little stank? Is it because her feet hurt? Like she didn't want to get up when they were trying to get closer to each other because the stages were so far. And she made like a side eye or something when somebody had suggested like, oh, Coco, sing for real, whatever. But it turns out that right before Versus, she had walked out of her hotel room and had found someone shot. And she had like an anxiety attack right before the Versus went on. She posted it on her Instagram about like, that's why I looked shaken up and was just like uncomfortable because I had just walked into someone in my hallway. And she's like, I had a panic attack. And then like her son and a few other people in her camp that was around her, like helped her, like, no, let's, if you can, like get it together to do the show. And so she went out and did it. And so if you go back, you can tell like pre-wardrobe change versus after. She was like, what I thought at first was a stank personality was like shock.
Wow, I didn't get that. I was mostly listening to the audio in my car because I was driving at the time that it started.
Me and Tangi was texting back and forth during the actual show, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And it's like either she don't like her outfit or maybe her feet hurt because she took her shoes off. But she was traumatized, like basically.
Well, speaking of trauma, that was my inelegant segue.
I was like, whoa, that was a sharp fucking turn, but okay.
It really was. The listeners are used to it by now.
Yeah.
Look, I'm trying to keep it going. We got a doctor on the line.
True.
Okay, true. Time is money. So today's episode we wanted to talk about in all seriousness, speaking of trauma, speaking of things, I mean that is very traumatic. I can't imagine like walking out my door and seeing that. And in the time to literally of the panorama, and then having to perform Black women. Right. It's just you just got to keep going, right? So we wanted to, bring a mental health professional on the show because we know a lot of you, including ourselves, are constantly struggling with our mental health and our mental wellness. And so we wanted to bring our friend / Shore on the show. Her name is Danielle Busby. Dr. Busby is a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Michigan and in the state of Texas, where she currently resides. Dr. Busby is an assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine and Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, Texas. In this role, she primarily serves youth and families experiencing depressive symptoms, suicide risk, and symptoms related to trauma and grief.
She is passionate about decreasing barriers to mental health service use for underserved patient populations and is committed to continuing the bridge to gap between research and clinical practice. Additionally, Dr. Busby is co-founder and vice president of professional relations for Black Mental Wellness Corp., where she works with a team of change makers dedicated to mental health and wellness of the Black community. They have been featured in some notable publications and broadcasts, including People Magazine. She is also an Aries. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Dr. Busby.
Thank you for having me, guys.
So excited to have you. You've been on our guest list. I think since the inception of the show.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel special. Yeah. I feel special.
You are very special.
No, so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, Dana and I know you very personally, before you were Dr. Busby. I think that's what makes it super special, right?
Right.
Like, I remember when you were saying, I'm going to be a doctor. And I'm like, yes, you are going to be a doctor. And I always tell this story, so I have to tell it on this podcast.
Slow motion.
Slow motion. So So Danielle and I met when I was a freshman in college, and I lived in East Quad dormitory, and she was were you the RA or what is it called?
No, I was the minority peer advisor.
Minority peer advisor. They don't have those no more.
No, diversity peer educators now. We have to change the lingo. Okay, we're inclusive.
We're all inclusive. And I met her my freshman year, and I remember, I was in the Delta at that time, didn't even really know what Delta was, but I remember one night, it was the night of the step show that, again, I had no idea what was going on or that there was going to be a step show. I just remember you and Octavia coming down the stairs and turning the corner in your like these bomb ass Delta jackets. Were they? I think they were black and satin, or were they?
Red.
Oh, this is the show that was in East.
It was red.
It was for Founders Day. Yes,
maybe. And I just remember slow motion, like they turned the corner, and it was like, oh, and I was like, who are these people?
So extra.
Like, who are these? Like, I had already met Danielle once and thought she was bomb, but just knowing like there was a group of other Black women who were just on campus looking fabulous. I was like, what is a Delta? Tell me.
I gotta make sure Tay listens to this. Like, girl, you gotta hear the story. You gotta hear the story.
That was like my introduction to being like, I need to know more about this Delta stuff. Like, what is going on? I need to be them.
Right.
I love it.
I'm trying to walk in slow motion too.
Right. Can I be
I
somebody
feel like
that
we all
motion?
have our slow motion soror, right? Like the person that was like,
yes, like
I'm doing that.
so fabulous. Yes.
Right.
And to this day, it's slow motion with Danny because she is just bomb. Y'all heard her bio, okay? Y'all heard it. Dr. Busby is out here doing it for the folks.
I'm
And
so
the thing
grateful.
is,
Thank you.
no, and the thing is, like, Danielle has been about it. Like, she's been true to it. Like, this isn't something new. Ever since I met her as a minority peer advisor when I was a freshman, like, these are the topics and things she's always been very much dedicated to the betterment of the Black community. And that's why it's so fulfilling to see her in her journey, like, through getting into going, mind you, she went straight from undergrad to her PhD program. Let's start there. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that, okay? Danny went straight from her undergrad program to her graduate school program and is killing it. So I gave a little peek, but could you tell the listeners like how you became interested in mental health and mental wellness, and like what led you to helping create the Black Mental Wellness Corp?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, thank you for all those kind words. Like, I'm so grateful because like everyone that I'm in conversation with or I'm meeting in these moments, they haven't really been there from the beginning, right? Like they don't know that this is something that I've been like talking about since forever. Mm-hmm. So I just appreciate moments like this where we can come together and be like with your people that get it.
Absolutely.
Like, exactly. As we like take on more contracts, working with different stores that like are like, oh, look at that program name. That looks familiar, or things that really replicate that. So thank you for that.
You deserve your flowers.
Thank you. So appreciate it. But when I read that question, like what got me interested in mental health, I cannot just pinpoint one thing. I think it's so multifaceted for me. I think one is just I've always been somebody that's been inquisitive. Like I've always been a person that paid attention, right? And unfortunately, I think I saw many examples of people dealing with things related to mental health, and like I saw some people cope with it in ways that gave them better outcomes, and I saw other people cope in ways that things didn't go so well. And I just didn't understand like why did those differences so clearly exist. I think that coupled with, a very close family member of mine who I love dearly struggled with mental health related concerns throughout childhood into adulthood. And specifically, we're talking about like depression, suicidal risk, as you all read in my bio. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And I think that's because I just saw it up close, like when you see the effects of something up close, you see the multiple ways in which they show up. Like Absolutely. You see the multiple things that make it hard for somebody to get help. You like, I don't know, it's like it puts a different drive in you to really want to help change the system. And I think as it relates to just like adolescence and like probably why I enjoy working with like resistant adolescents, like people that are like, why do I gotta see you? I don't want to be here. Like I appreciate that energy because I was that kid. So I had a situation where I basically witnessed a violent event in my home where the police came, and basically by the time they left, it was like we had to seek services as a family. And when we did that, one, I had never heard of this before. I'm like, we got to talk to people. Like, y'all know how it is, like in the Black community, like the stigma that exists around things going outside the house. And it was just like a whole thing. And so just seeing people's reaction to that really gave me insight to just like, oh, my people don't really bang with this, but why? Because I'm looking at how y'all are handling some things and I'm confused. But then just in that experience, one of my first providers, I didn't relate to him. He kind of came with a bunch of assumptions, and like I kind of, I'm an Aries, as y'all heard. I was a little fiery as a child, so I'm looking like I'm not talking to him. So I was like that resistant kid. So I think those things in combination really have like led to why I'm so passionate about mental health. But speaking of Black mental wellness specifically, that just came out of a need. Like it's been so many instances where, I wish a family who identifies as Black or African American could have came in sooner, right? Like your prognosis would be better. And so many times that like, I don't see us show up until it's like dire. Like I had to come here, not like in a preventative effort type way, right? And then when I looked at the data and I see that there are clear disparities as it relates to service use, as it relates to like who's experienced which type of problems, right? Like when we talk about trauma, like there's so many things that put the Black community at higher risk for a range of these traumas, and we look at other numbers, right? And so for us, it was just like, dang, we're tired of seeing this. We don't see enough resources that really speak to Black people. How are Black people gonna really like tap in and use them, right? I need something to make sense. And so Dr. Nicole K-Mac, she's our president and CEO. She's kind of the person that brought us together. We kind of came like, oh, this is just a good thing to do, make resources, create an online community. And it just kind of snowballed from there, where now we like have contracts with school districts and companies and corporations and law firms as it relates to wellness, particular to the Black community, but just broadly as well. So sorry, that was a long answer.
No, don't apologize. No, that's
and
that's
Ariana
really
Grande
dope.
posted you too.
You know, I feel like it's so funny because I hear this from other people. Like, really? Oh, let me look. Like, you know, it just show up on lists now. It's crazy. I feel like one generation of people value us because Ariana Grande posted us. Like, oh, they for real. But then in our science community, you know, if APA posts something or the American Association for Suicidality, like that, those are the real things. That's just funny
cover
to
all
see
the
the difference.
Like the duality.
Right, cover all the bases.
But we're both, you know, we're both. We're people and we're scientists. So absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I totally identify with your, like, how you got into it, because for me, like, growing up with a mother with mental illness, and I've talked about this on the show, helped to shape my philosophy on how the world should be. But it, you know, like, and we always take that, so we either like, we take that trauma that we had, right, and so I put that into like, oh, I want to shape the built environment so no other child has to do, you know, has to come under these circumstances. So it always manifests itself in different ways. But you know, but a lot of us have some of the same stories where it's like, we saw people in our lives deal with like depression or schizophrenia, but we didn't, like, for me, I didn't know what that was until I got to college and I could start Googling, and I'm like, oh, this is why my mother acts like this, or this is why so-and-so treated us like this. This is the generational trauma that my family has. And I think you bringing that to the forefront takes it so that you don't have to wait until you're 20 years old to figure out, oh, this is why my family operates the way it does, or this is why I wake up and feel sad. You know, so I think it's really commendable that you've spent literally your entire life using your experience. No, it's using your experience to like build on that and make it easier for other folks. I just love that.
Yeah. And even now here's my slow motion story. But even to the point of like not knowing what mental, or at least the title mental health, mental wellness was until meeting you, was the program that you put on when you were a Delta. I was Iggy. They might think I'm crazy. Like, that was the first program that actually going into that and like understanding, because I have an aunt who is bipolar. So even having to see like how my family was interacting and like handling that, and not fully understanding or knowing the words of like, why is her personality completely different depending on the day that I see her, when like, this is my aunt, I see her every day, like what's going on. But even that program was like, let me actually, if it wasn't Google, it was whatever, if it was still Google, but like, let me actually figure out what this is, because this is something different that I feel like mental health is one of those things where, at least in my family or the people that I'm around, as far as older generation, like I have more information than they do, because, you know, in the Black community is go to church, or it's like, oh no, my nerve's just bad, or whatever sayings that we say to like throw over mental health or mental wellness, or like, or even thinking going to therapy is like something traumatic happened to you, as opposed to like, I just need to go to like help me maneuver life. Is something too. And depending on what that, I guess, going into my question, how would you define mental wellness, and kind of what is that, an umbrella term, or like to you, what is mental wellness?
Okay, so I'm going to answer, but I just have to like comment on some things that I just think are powerful about you and Nina's story. It's just like, it's so much power in naming it. Like, I think we really underestimate what it is to name some stuff. So like, this isn't the part of doing it. We're literally just identifying, because a lot of us are walking around here in clouds. We've done a lot of things to mask it, to escape it, to be busy ourselves with work, or, you know what I mean, other things. And we can't name our situations, like naming stuff that's happened in your family, naming your current mood, your current feelings. Like, we've learned to let everything be super surface, where it's just, oh, I'm mad, I'm irritated. You know, like, it's just like those basic surface emotions. We can't be like, dang, I'm disappointed. That kind of hurt my feelings. Like, that's where it really hurt at. You know what I mean? So I commend both of y'all for like, you know me, I'm super hyped to hear that the program that we put together was like a snowball, which is what I want it to be. You know what I mean? As we do this work and as we continue this conversation, it's just like, we got to talk about it, because then it's normal. Like, it's like, yo, you too? Oh, tell me what worked for you. Because it don't always got to be going to see a therapist, which I think is a good important step to take if that's where you're at. Or if you're just trying to like better yourself, you don't have to always have a problem to go see somebody, right? Like I do an annual check for my physical health just to be like, we good, you know? Right. So it's like, it's the same, but you know, I get that it's a slow motion thing, but okay. So that was my comments on that. Now, what is wellness to me? You know, for me, wellness is about functioning. Like, am I able to function well across areas that are important to me? So physically, like, am I moving my body? Am I eating good things? Like, am I going to all my doctor's appointment and I know that I'm good, right? Like mentally, like, am I at peace? Like, am I able to move within the world with some level of ease? Or, you know, it doesn't have to be like you got to be happy 24/7, but like I'm content with my situation and what's going on. And I'm striving for different things. And I have different goals related to family or related to my career or just like life in general, like whatever. So I think wellness is the combination of those things, like thinking about your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your relationship health. Like, are those things going well for you? And are you good with them? Like, would you be like, yeah, I'm proud of this? You know what I mean? So for me, that's how I define wellness.
What would you say is the biggest, sorry, I said biggest. To say biggest. What would you say is the biggest misconception people have about mental wellness? Because like what you just described, you know, it's an abstract thing, right? Because we're just getting to a point, and I feel like Generation Z is much better at this than millennials. The rest of us are trying to catch on. But like of naming it and being able to say, just as you described, I'm a person who's like, I'm fine.
Oh, queen of I'm fine.
Oh yeah. Super. Like I could be like,
it's rough, but I'll get through it.
5 minutes ago. I'm fine. What do you need? You know, it's so like, you know, we all have different definitions of what we think mental wellness is. So what do you think the biggest misconception about what mental wellness is?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of them. I'm gonna name two because I'm bad at picking one. I'm just bad at that in general. I think one is anything that says like a particular type of person only experiences Y or X, right? Like, so if I'm like, oh, Black people don't die by suicide, it's like, that's actually false. Like, if you look at the data, it's the second leading cause of death for third leading cause of death for adolescents, second leading cause of death, we're talking about children. Like, so like our little people are dying by suicide, right? Like, that's a false fact, right? Or that, you know, that's not a thing for this group of people. Like, therapy can work for everybody. I think you want to be particular about what it is that you're working on so you can know what's important for you and a provider. But like, I think this idea that it's like for this subset of people, I think also it's this idea that therapy is for a privileged set of people, right? Like, we think only if you can even afford to think about your mental health, like how privileged are you, right? But what we need to really realize is that mental and physical health works together, right? Like, so yeah, if your physical health doing okay, but your mental health bad, your body gonna follow. Like, it's a cycle. We doing this. So it's reasons why we see disparities and as it relates to death by X, or, you know what I mean? When we look at the Black community specifically. And I think if we're more intentional about like dealing with both in the same ways, at least partially in this, like, you know, like we can make them match more, I think we'll see better outcomes.
Yeah, no, that a lot of what you said, I think our listeners will probably relate to, or it will resonate with them, because it's like, I don't got money for that. Right. I don't got time for that. And a lot of us, including myself, are in constant survival mode. Like, the things I went through is funny, because the one time I had a stable therapist in my life was like the last year or so that I lived in Los Angeles. Love her, Glenna Anderson. You know, she out of where she was a Black woman. She was a restorer, and I didn't even realize until like 6 months into our sessions that she was a restorer. I'm sitting here talking about Delta. She just was like, not. And then one day she says, I'm like, oh, you're a restorer. Anyway, Glenna Anderson, she's great. But I remember telling her a story, and I was probably telling it so matter-of-factly, and she started to like cry, like, or tear up, and I was like, oh my God. And she was like, do you realize how like much you've been through? And it took that reaction from her, like this clearly very professional therapist, and I'm sure that was not like an emotion that she shared very often, but it took her to tell me, girl, that's a lot. For me to be like, oh, I didn't even realize that was a lot, right? Because I'm constantly in I have to survive. I have to go to the next thing. I can't dwell on the things that hurt my feelings or the pain that has been caused, because we, especially Black women, always going, going, going.
Yeah. Or
absolutely.
I think too, or the flip side of that is, or what I often do is, oh, well, there's somebody who's worse off than me. So whatever I'm going through is like negate that, because at least I have a roof over my head, or at least I have food on the table. So I can't, what do I have to complain for? Why am I complaining? Like, just suck it up and keep going. And
that is, I didn't even cut you off, Dana, but it's so consistent with a study that we did specific to like really trying to understand barriers to care. And so when we looked at Black college students, these were Black college students who are at elevated risk for suicide. So in some way they indicated 2 risk factors that were specific to suicide, and they were currently not receiving services. So you're at elevated risk, you're not seeking services, and we want to know why. And for the Black college students specifically, perceived need, this limited idea of needing any type of treatment was the biggest reason they didn't seek treatment. Not logistics, not the time that's your appointment, not the money, you know what I mean? Like, none of those other things were as high as the perceived need. And I think that's common for Black people in general. Like, y'all just named it, right? Like, oh, it's not as bad as X. Okay, if we talking about my arm is chopped off versus my hand is chopped off, like, we probably both need to think about some treatment. Like, it don't matter.
Right.
Or maybe it's not even that bad. Maybe my hand just hurt. Like, whatever. Like, my point is, it doesn't have to be the worst of the worst before we do anything about it, right? Like, but that is how we think. Like, it's not, and there's mistrust. There's like a bunch of reasons, and I get it. So many reasons. But I think as a culture, like, we've overcome a lot of things. So it's nothing that I'm doing 10 million things and burnt out and taking care of this and taking care of that and strong Black woman cape to the max. Like, no big deal. Everybody does that. It's like, and it's still taxing to everybody.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
To that point, a lot of people deal with trauma differently. And many of us, as Nina said, are in survival mode and don't label how we feel as depression. What are some signs that you would say for our listeners to be able to identify when it is a good time for people to get help, or even to start doing their research of like, do I need to get help, or start thinking about that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, so I do work from like a very prevention model. So like, I am very intentional when I know stressful things are coming. And I mean, we couldn't, predict this that we're in, right? But like, when I move, when I know I'm changing jobs, when I had a relationship end, like when big things happen, those are just my signs off rip. Like, people say this is stressful, even if I don't think I'm feeling it right now. Let me go do some things that's gonna like ultra pad, the fact that I'm doing a lot right now. Like, whether I want to or not, these things require a lot of me. So I'm gonna do more to like put more in the self-care bucket than typical, because more big stuff is happening. So like, that's really important, right?
Me and Dana look at each other like, she's reading us to filth.
Yeah.
Meaning, you are reading Dana and I to filth right now.
Yeah. Particularly because I feel like
I'm guilty.
We both have those personalities of like, nope, I can push through it. I'm good. Like,
but like, at what cost though? Like, what are you giving up? Like,
yeah,
exactly.
Sleep.
And and I think a lot of times we're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's like, but you're worthy of better. You're worthy of ease. You're worthy of flow. You're worthy of like peace. Like, everything don't need to be a crisis. Everything don't need to be, oh my God, it's an emergency. And like, I'm speaking to me too. So I think another misconception, I know this is going backwards, is that like therapists don't need therapists. Like, me and my therapist are cool.
Especially as Black women.
Yeah.
I love her. Good luck.
I've been asking my therapist, how are you doing today in the midst of,
and she probably reshift to be like, but this is about you,
right,
blah, blah, blah. Right. No, but like, that's another misconception as huge. But like, as it relates to things to look for, right? Like, functioning, like, I'm really big on, am I doing the things that I'm responsible for doing well, right? Like, am I moving my body? Am I exercising? Because we know that that's really important for our health generally. Like, am I eating good foods that are giving me the energy I need? Or am I often feeling like I'm forgetting to eat? Oh, I used to be queen of that. I used to have to be like, put it in my schedule, lunch, Danielle, you eat it right there. You know what I mean? Or like, I've been so busy, like all of that, like that's not good for you. You're not supposed to be in constant rush mode. Like your body needs what it needs to perform. Then the next question I ask myself, like, how are the people that I'm around and are in my world? Like, how are we doing? Like, how are our relationships? Like, am I more irritable? Am I like more attitudinal in my meeting? And like, you know, Nicole got to be like, damn, what's going on? Like, I appreciate my friends that caught me out when you can kind of see your mood changing. Are you eating more or less? Are you having a really hard time, like getting going? Like sometimes it feels like you're walking through mud. That's how some patients will describe it. Like I'm moving, but it's really hard to move. Like the things that used to take you like
me right now,
not as much energy or time are taking all the energy and time. Like, are you like you know, feeling really fatigued after small tasks? Like these are things that like, are you forgetting to do the things that make you feel good? Like get your hair done, get your nails done, like. I know we're in a pandemic and everybody's state is different. I live in Houston, y'all, so we operate a little different. A little different here. However,
Atlanta light.
my larger point is paying attention to those shifts. Like the things that you used to have fun doing, do they feel just like a drag or they're taking like the life out of you, right? So like when you catch on to these things, like name them. And just track your mood. Like I tell people all the time, like if you're not sure, just pay attention to your mood for a week. Pay attention to it night and day. How was the day? Are more days feeling like, I can barely move? Because it's normal for us to all have stress. It's normal for us to all deal with something, right? But like, how am I functioning? Am I able to still get it done? Or like I say this in sessions, y'all. I be like, when you hold a brick for a minute, it feels different than when you hold a brick for an hour. Right? So like my arm and my muscle is going to fatigue at a certain point. Like I can't hold it no more. Or like when I'm trying to bring in all the groceries, because I like when I see them, I'm like, oh, I got it. And then I pick everything up and I'm good in that first moment. But now I done went up a flight of stairs. I got to go down this long hallway. I'm tired. I don't want to carry these groceries no more. And they feel like they're way heavier than I first picked them up. So it's not just about what stressors are there. How long have you been holding them? How long have you been holding them by yourself? What's your support like? Like, who are your people? Right? Like, it's okay. And then if you are more intentional about knowing, I'm not Superwoman. I don't even want to be pretending to be Superwoman. I need help. I've gotten so much further because I'm honest with me and I'm naming it like, oh, I'm tired. I can't do it all. Who else can I delegate to? What's not about to get done? Because it's 24 hours in a day and I'm going to sleep today. Because I used to try to give up sleep and that's silly. That's my physical health. How I'm gonna move through the next day to do everything plus more? Like, no, we gotta have some non-negotiables. Okay, sorry, long answer.
No, that's like I just feel like you just dragged me.
Right.
I'm gonna do better, Lord.
I know.
You got it.
Yep.
I struggle too. Yep. Sometimes we also feel like I think sometimes we feel like it's so many good things that be happening, right? So when it's good things, you feel like I got to. I know that I've become like guilty of that. And so it's still like, even in the good things, you got to get selective about what's your calling, like what's your purpose, like what's the best use of your time, what is really important to you. Because at the end of the day, like everybody gonna always ask for something and it's only gonna get to be more. I'm like, it never slows down. That used to be the trick. I tell myself, I'm gonna cross off the to-do list. The to-do list never goes away.
Keep growing. Yeah,
it never
goes. It's just something new adds, and it's something get real urgent.
And when you show yourself to be competent and good at something, right? Like helping people, or eliminating challenges, or being there to save the day, which is like literally my entire existence is trying to do that for other people. People rely on that more and more, and the boundaries get less and less, and then you feel overwhelmed. But as you said, it's like I talk myself out of it because I'm like, well, I'm blessed. I have a great job. I have an opportunity to help people. People confide in me, right?
Both and that is all true, and you should have a boundary because it's healthy. Like, people confide in you. That you good at your job, you killing it. Yep. And the other half of that is what? Like, if you burn out, then what? What other people gonna do?
Because you don't got nothing to give.
Yeah.
When I came to doing caretaking stuff with my parents, I had to like really come to terms with that. Like, what happens to them if I'm no good? Like, I have a new responsibility in their life, right? Like, I'm in charge of things now. Like, I can't just be reckless. Because this is not just, it's just me technically because I'm like single with no kids, but like, you know, they attach. If I got to make sure they're good. So when you kind of consider the bigger picture, it's like necessary.
Yeah. No, it is very necessary. So for those of us in the audience that you just dragged to Phil, and now we're like, okay, we need help. And we appreciate Dr. Busby for bringing us to this moment. Like, what would you say for people who are like, you know, at the beginning of their mental health journey and they're like, therapy seems too expensive, you know, and for some people, logistically, it may be at this point, like, what would you say is like a good step or a step in the right direction to like get them to that point of realizing their mental wellness?
Yeah. So I love that question. I'm gonna give like twofold answers. So if it's one section of like, I do really want to go to therapy, but I have all these things that are getting in the way, I'll answer that. And then two, like, no, I'm not really banging with therapy yet. You all have to convince me. That's not really what I'm doing. What other strategies do you have? I'll kind of like think in that vein. So to answer the first question, I think I get it. Money is a real thing. Everybody don't take insurance for a bunch of different reasons. Insurance providers are very overwhelmed. It's a pandemic. It's hard to find providers. So I get that there are a lot of things getting in the way, but I think other places to consider that people don't always think is, one, ask your provider, even if they're private pay only, like, do they have any sliding fee scale options? So like, do they have any option that depending on whatever your income is or whatever you really could, you know, actually afford, like, are they willing to slide their scale for whatever reason and what limitations they may have because of that? Another thing I suggest is a lot of schools, so if you're at a university anywhere, a lot of schools that have doctoral programs in clinical psychology will use this sliding fee scale or see you for really low pay. You will have to see a student who's in training, but they're supervised by a licensed clinical psychologist, and that's another opportunity to not have to pay as much. So I think sometimes those are like gems out there that sometimes like students need hours, you know what I mean? So like there are providers available, but then you do have to be a little less picky about things that are really tough, like race or gender or a particular like expertise area, right? We kind of have to have some flexibility there, but I just wanted to put those out there. Other strategies, right? Like, so sometimes you're just like, I'm not, like, therapy might not even be it. Like, I'm not always in therapy, right? Like, you know, it's different times of life that sometimes it makes more sense than others, but I try to incorporate strategies into my world that help keep me grounded. So I have this journal. It's called a gratitude journal. And I mean, I got this at Target, y'all, but,
very pretty for the listeners. It's got flowers on it, colors, gratitude on the front.
And then when you open it, it has this thing that says I'm grateful for. So I try to start my day by naming 3 things I'm grateful for. So really like training your thoughts to be on the positive, right? So like sometimes naturally we have this very quick inclination to go through the worst thing that can happen, all the bad stuff. And that's fine. I get it. However, we have to give equal weight to the same things in the opposite direction, because your brain is going to have practice in only thinking of the bad. So then you're going to be anxious. Your body going to get more stress hormones. Like, we don't need all of that. So we need to have intentional practices that help us be more intentional about what are we grateful for and kind of what are the things that we're looking forward to. It also has this really cute section where I like name my goals and make my schedule each day. And then I like crossing off like things on my to-do list or whatever. Also, like having a time for, some people will say mindfulness, some people will say meditation. It's really like 10 minutes of just like quiet time where you sit with your thoughts. I do it at the top of my day as a way to like prepare myself for what's coming and to just kind of like pay attention to the noise. I don't know if you guys noticed that, like when something is stressing me out, for example, it keeps coming up into like those default thoughts and they're like in my brain, right? Yep. So you can catch those and you can do something with them, right? And so whenever we're talking about like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy strategies, we talk about cognitive strategies, but then behavioral strategies. So on the behavioral side of things, what are the things that you do that make you feel well? Like, who are the friends you can call? What are the activities that you can do? Maybe it's just taking a walk. Maybe it's, I like buy roses every time I go to the grocery store. Like, I love seeing like flowers, for example. Like being thoughtful about what are the behaviors you're going to do to be intentional, particularly if you're feeling down or if you're having a hard time. And like connect with community. Like sometimes just having a conversation with a friend will totally shift your mood. But you have to, sometimes you have to do it when you don't really feel like doing it, right? Like that's the whole thing about what we call behavior activation. Like, how can I plan out the behaviors I need to do in order to kind of see the shift in the thinking and the mood that I'm looking for? So I think those are some very basic strategies. On blackmentalwellness.com, sorry, brief plug, there's a bunch of resources particular to coping and wellness.
Plug away.
Yeah. We'll put it in the bio too for the episode.
Awesome. There's a bunch of resources particular to coping and wellness, but I just kind of named a few that I'm seeing come up a lot, particularly during this time, because people's thoughts are really getting away from them, right? Like we're anxious about things. We've experienced a lot of loss. We have a lot of doubt about what's to come. We've actually had to do a much better job of accepting uncertainty, right? Like we don't know. We're just guessing and we're going to go, right? Like that's been really hard for people. So I recognize that now is a very unique time in that way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Even to your point of if you don't know if you want to go into therapy, I think for me, before I started like consistently going to therapy, I thought it was from what I would see in TV or in movies of like, oh, I'm gonna have to sit and talk about my feelings all day or for an hour. And I don't talk about my feelings at like, I'm a Capricorn. Like it's not feelings, it's all about facts and whatever. But when I started going to a therapist and more so, it wasn't, I mean, I still talk about my feelings. And even she tells me like, you keep saying, I think you need to start saying, I feel. But like, it was more so problem solving of like, I have a problem and it's just someone helping me break down that problem. And me as an engineer, where all I do all day is problem solve, it's like, oh, this is different. I'm not sitting around just talking about my feelings. You can kind of get it out of me how you pose the questions. And it's like, oh shit, I'm already knee deep. But like, it's more so being able to solve a problem. And for me, or like being able to analyze, or even to the point of understanding my behaviors, it was wrapped differently for me that helped like be able to break it down. And now I'm like, oh, I gotta go. It's almost like strategy meetings. Sometimes I think of like my therapy sessions, like, oh, I have to go and present this so I can improve to be a better, myself and help figure everything out. My therapist is also a soror too. But being able to like,
it's just something about Delta.
Right. Right. So then when I'm talking about, oh, y'all, my line, no, I'm just playing. But like, yeah, just having a different viewpoint of it has helped me and also changed the misconception of like, am I going to be sitting on this couch being asked how I feel for 6
years? I think that's another misconception I thought about was just like what therapy is like. And I think the media has definitely helped shape that, right? Like people be like, I mean, you meet people, they're like, oh, tell me all my problems or tell me all my thoughts. I'm like, first, I'm not a psychic, right? Like, that's this weird thing that y'all think I'm trying to do. Like, no. But then even still, it's just like, it's not someone trying to trick you. It's not someone trying to like get something out of you to share or to make you cry. Like, it is a partnership. And I tell people all the time, like, I come with a certain level of expertise, but you come with a certain level of expertise of you. You know you. I know stuff that the literature says works. I've seen work for other people. You know what I mean? Like, so we're coming together. If we're not both ready to do that intersection, it's not going to work. And I think sometimes people are just like, fix me, because the other models of our medical system kind of say like, give me this med, tell me this regimen. And it's like, no, it's collaborative. Like we're doing this work. And sometimes I think people think it's not as hard. I'm like, yo, therapy is hard work. This is not for the weak. Like you got to work through some stuff. You are like miles ahead of so many people. That's why I'm always so inspired by my patients, particularly because I work with kids. Like they be like killing it, even though they've been through so much, So I think just the idea of what it looks like and what it means. And, the TV always got us dating somebody or it turns into some love affair. It's like, y'all are not helping. Y'all are not helping.
Those misconceptions are real. And I also think, when it comes to a lot of us, and I can speak for myself who have very prompt, like with my mother, me having a fear of ending up like my mother. And so even like I take anxiety medication, but when my therapist first suggested it to me, I was like, oh no, like, no, never, I would never, this is too far. She gave me the prescription, I just was like sat on the prescription for like a month, filled the prescription eventually because she kept asking me about it. Let this prescription sit there for even more time because I just was like, no, like this is I don't want to end up like my mom. And I think even working through that, right, of just being like, I don't want to be that right, you have an example where you have an idea, like either based on the media, right, of crazy, quote unquote, what crazy people look like. And you move through life trying to be the counter to that, because it's like, it's not that bad. But sometimes you just have to, you know, take a jump of faith. And I share that I'm on my anxiety medication purposefully to say to other people, like, it's okay. And I'm not perfect, because sometimes I take it, sometimes I, you know, it just depends, right? But I think even sharing that with some of my closest friends, they were like, oh, I didn't even know that that's something that you're going through, or that, you know, that you needed that type of intervention. I'm like, yeah, like, and a lot of us do, and you should not be ashamed of that.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Because I can already imagine the whole journey, right? And like, I tell people sometimes, and like, I try to ask people up front, like, some families come in like, no medication. And I'm working with younger kids too. So they're like, oh, what is all the effects? And I hear them.
Yeah.
But my thing is just like, you got to look at functioning. Like, how much is this getting in the way? Like, how much is it stopping you from doing the things you need to do to be well, to be happy, to be living the life you want to live? And like, sometimes you need help. Like, we know that when we have a cold, like, and we know the natural remedy for colds are what? Like, everybody like, drink fluids, get some rest, like all these things, right? But if I'm congested and I need to sleep, because that's a natural remedy, right? And I can't go to sleep because I'm congested, so I can't breathe. I need to do something about it, right? And so it's not like one or the other. It's not like forever and always. It's just like, you got to try it out. You got to see. But I get it. And I don't want people to tell me they're going to do something if they're not. That's why she kept asking you. Because if you're saying you're going to do it, I'm just saying.
No, she pressed me a few times.
Let's own it if we not. It's cool. We're going to come up with a new plan, though. No, I feel her. But I'm proud of you for sharing that, because I know that's not easy. And like, it's a different thing when like, oh, we can go to therapy, but like, oh, we ain't messing with the medication.
Right.
And families are very clear with me.
For sure.
And I used to be one of them. Like, I came in like, oh, I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm not prescribing all those meds. And I laugh at myself, because I'm like, no, like, you got to see the spectrum. Like, once you get more knowledge, you got a different understanding for sure.
Yeah. Well, tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can find the mental wellness brands, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Mental Wellness, you can find us at www.blackmentalwellness.com. We have a ton of free resources on our website related to a range of mental health topics, and they're all from a Black perspective, and we try to make them as relatable and in layman terms as possible. And then also you can reach us if you ever need us to do any type of training or speaking engagement or any type of consultation related to topics related to wellness overall. And we do that in schools, corporations, firms, etc. And then you can find me personally at drdaniellebusby.com. So I'm currently doing private practice out of the state of Michigan, where I'll be doing telehealth only. I also do supervision services for students who are at a limited license phase and they're a mental health provider. And so I do that out of the state of Michigan and the state of Texas. So if anybody has interest there, please feel free, reach out. I'll just leave my email. Probably the best email for me would be drbusby@blackmentalwellness.com. You can reach me directly. Any questions related to our work or just resources you need. People hit me up all the time and say, hey, I'm struggling finding a provider, etc. Like, our goal is to get as many people connected if they want to be connected as possible. So happy to be a resource for that as well.
Yes. Each one teach one. Danny been about it since day one, okay? Since day one.
I love y'all.
I knew you win.
Right.
I knew you win.
I love it. Well, thank you, Dr. Busby. And I can't get over that. Dr. Busby. Thank you, Dr. Busby.
It was meant to be. It's showing this.
It was.
Right. It really was.
My middle name is Renee, guys.
Mine too.
You don't know.
Yeah, because people was like, oh, you just knew?
If you a hood rat from Detroit, your middle name probably Nicole or Renee.
Whatever. Why she a hater?
Whatever.
She's a hater. It's okay. We love you anyway.
Tell me I'm wrong.
There was a trend, okay? It was a trend.
You know, my mama might have been following some things.
Right?
You know,
anyway,
whatever.
We really appreciate you joining us today. I think that's the end of today's episode. We really hope you enjoyed it, and we really hope that it inspires some of y'all who may be struggling to know that you're not the only one.
You're not.
To go get help.
You're not.
Yeah.
I don't regret jumping into therapy at all.
Yeah.
And it took me time to get into it, but it's worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
Maybe.
Bye.
This episode was produced by us and edited by Daner Cole. Our theme music is the track Same by Ricky Ells. Be sure to check it out on all streaming platforms. For questions, comments, feedback, or topic suggestions, hit us up at queentonepod@gmail.com. Be sure to also check us out and follow on Instagram and Twitter @queentonepod. Thanks for listening.